What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up, Rebels? Welcome back to Rebel Radio, the weekly show where I talk to the rebels that are shaping youth culture. We find out how they do it, why they do it, and what you can do to get a little piece of the pie for yourself. And we're also the only show to bring you new music every week from our friends over at EDM.com. I'm your host, Josh Levine. Check it out. My man, Matt Orlove, is in studio with me this week. Matt's the CEO of Orlove Entertainment. They produce over 200 events a year all over the country. Some parties you might know, like Wicked Paradise, Panic in LA, Daft Brunch, many others. He's got some great stories about creating an experience for his guests and why customer service is important and kind of overlooked in the nightlife business, and why his background in ad sales was good training for the job he's in now. Some great stories coming up from Matt Orlove right after the EDM.com track of the week.
To you, thinking back when you told me the hard.
That was Peter Payne with Running Back to You, the EDM.com track of the week. If you like that one, get over to EDM.com, check out more new music. And now let's get into the interview with Matt Orlove.
Never break it off, we just let it bend. We should let it in, girl.
But thanks for doing this, man. I'm excited to talk to you. I've been looking at all your parties online, and it reminds me I need to get out more often.
Well, thanks for having me.
Because it looks like you're doing really fun stuff.
Yeah.
And the fact that you said you're not out all the time, I think is even more interesting.
Well, I'm almost 40.
Yeah.
In 3 weeks.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just focused on work and family.
When's your birthday?
January 25th.
Oh, okay.
And I have baby number 3 coming.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Somewhere around that. Thank you.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what having 3 kids is like.
Do you have any?
I have 1.
You have 1. Times 3.
Yeah. At least.
You have to have, I'm lucky to have a wife who does the majority of the hard work.
Sure.
So that's good.
Yeah.
And then I can focus on my stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you got started. Anyway, I got a bunch of questions about about club life. But
okay.
Do you remember the first record that you bought or that like really impacted you?
Impacted or first record?
Oh, let's
okay,
both.
we could do both.
Okay.
The first, let's go back, way back in time. The first cassette tape I got was probably somewhere in 1984 to 1986, I can't remember, was Licensed to Ill.
Mm-hmm.
Was Beastie Boys.
Nice. It's a good place to start.
My first CD, when CDs first came out, I was in London, was this compilation album that the Beach Boys put out called Still Cruising.
Oh, cool.
And it was all the Beach Boys songs from movies. So like Kokomo, The Big Chill had a Wouldn't It Be Nice, like all those songs. Looking back at it, it's definitely not the best Beach Boys album, but it was the first CD I ever got. I would say the first album that really impacted me when I was really young was Midnight Marauders.
Oh, cool.
It was Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah.
And I've always been more of like a full album listener as opposed to just one track. So that's kind of been my thing.
Sure.
What about you?
Well, the first record I bought was a 7-inch.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Smokey Robinson.
Which
Tell
one?
Me Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told this story, which is it's embarrassing, but like I didn't realize that you're supposed to keep records at the time.
So you threw them all out.
That one, like I got tired of playing it, so I started breaking it. Like I would like play frisbee with it. That was the only record I did that with. After that, I actually have all my records since then. But I was super young, whatever. And then like the first hip hop record I bought, or like 12-inch single, was Double Dutch Bus, and you know, that like it was like as soon as we heard hip hop, or we didn't know what it was, there wasn't a name for it yet. That's just was the thing, you know, and so it was amazing how like that just took over our lives.
And that's always been the music you've gravitated towards, or you're all over?
No, I love lots of different types of music. You know, over the years I got into house and the like electro rock, and even then, you know, there was a year when all the cholos I knew at school got into heavy metal, and so I got exposed all of a sudden to Judas Priest and Metallica and Black Sabbath and stuff. But it's funny how like there's songs that I love or albums, but that's not my music. Like it doesn't speak to me in the sense of like, you know, I kind of feel like a visitor in that world. You know, like I knew guys who like had long hair and leather jackets and just smelled like weed all the time. Like that was their thing. But, you know, that wasn't my life.
Have you been to heavy metal shows?
I went and saw Black Sabbath about 15 years ago, which was pretty amazing because we walked in to the Forum and it was their reunion. You know, they hadn't played together in however many years. And you saw guys who looked like they hadn't been out of the house since the last Black Sabbath tour. Just like Pendletons and long hair.
Yeah.
You know.
And Ozzy was amazing.
Oh, yeah. Incredible.
Yeah.
And then the next year they launched Ozfest. So I forget when that was, but it was about 15 years ago. I don't know if I've been to other metal shows, but I you know, I grew up going to like. First of all, we started clubbing really early, like 14 in San Francisco.
What year? Like what?
So I was 14 in '86.
Okay.
85. So at that time there was this like house music wasn't quite there. It was just sort of forming. So you'd go to these clubs that played disco and funk and soul and hip hop, and then, you know, in '89 they started adding some house, you know, acid house, like that kind of thing. And it was this very, you know, I guess now we call it open format, although open format tends to be more contemporary. But this was just like something from the 70s, the 80s.
So it's really eclectic mix, yeah.
Yeah, totally. And that's just what clubs were at the time. And it wasn't, I think, until much later that everything got specialized. So let's talk about you, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
How did you, so you have this great event business now. How did you grow up clubbing and going to parties and all that?
I did. I went to University of Miami. So I was in Miami in 97 to 2001, so South Beach was definitely popping.
Yeah.
But it was a different time. So, you know, Carl Cox and Paul Van Dyke and Oakenfold and all those guys would be at the clubs, but you wouldn't actually see them.
Right.
So you go to the clubs and they'd be in a DJ booth and you'd be picking up women and drinking and doing all that kind of things. So when I left college, I moved to LA, and the whole electronic music scene definitely changed, became more of a spectacle.
Sure.
So I kind of missed a lot of that. Swedish House Mafia, like Avicii. I never really listened to that, so I wasn't listening to it or going to those shows. My background is in sales and marketing. I spent many years in television ad sales. I worked at KTLA.
Oh wow. What's that like?
It was great. I mean, it was.
What did you learn from that experience that you
So
applied?
KTLA was owned by I don't even know if they're still owned by Tribune, but it was Tribune property.
Yeah.
So it was, you know, getting up every day early, wearing suit and tie, very like buttoned up corporate world.
Sure.
And that's definitely formed me to who I am today in business.
Yeah.
I left. I was probably in TV ad sales for 8 years. And I left at an interesting time because advertisers were diversifying their ad spend on internet and TV.
Yeah.
When I was there, it was mostly in TV.
Right.
So my first exposure to the events world was at a company called Junebug in New York.
Okay.
and they do somewhere between 200 and 300 New Year's Eve parties a year all over the country. So they'll buy out a venue, they'll bring in $500 DJ, and people will pay $200 for an open bar package.
Sure. Yeah.
So I learned the event side from that, and then when I moved back to LA, I wanted to start a business with my knowledge of events, and then mix in the music side of it.
Yeah.
So that's how we got here.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What was the first party?
So well, I will say that it took me, I think, 8 or 9 months just to book my first show.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So were you still working at KTLA at the time?
No.
So you left.
KTLA, I had left, and I ended up working for
Junebug.
For a rep firm first.
Okay.
Television ad sales rep firm where we would represent hundreds of TV stations all over the country, but an advertiser could just go to us to book ad time at different stations.
Sure.
So when I left LA was probably in 2004, 2005, and then I moved to New York, and then I did. So the first show I booked was, it's an interesting story, was Penguin Prison.
Okay.
And this was at Sound Nightclub, and I definitely overpaid.
Yeah.
And I got lucky because RAC was playing a 2-night show at the Fonda, and his album had all of these support artists on it, and Penguin Prison was on that album. So it was an excuse for him to come out to LA, play that show as a surprise guest, and then also have his own headlining show at Sound.
Nice.
So on that show we had him, we had Sunburn before he went to CAA, and then we got lucky because Gold Room and the Knox and Carl Kling all came from the Fonda show, and then played a surprise set at our show.
Nice.
So it ended up being a special night.
Yeah.
And we were off.
That's cool. The first night I did, so I threw parties a little bit on the side. And the first night I learned so many incredible lessons. We did like a benefit thing, so we didn't pay any talent. We paid way too much for the venue, and we learned about controlling the door, which we did. We didn't. We lost a bunch of money and whatever. But it was a show. We had Eazy-E was the host, and so it was like Ruthless Records. So he brought Atman Clan, who became Black Eyed Peas, and we got Funk Dubious, who brought Cypress Hill. And then I forget who even DJ'd. But we had this like huge bill. It was like way more than we were ready to take on. Me and 2 other guys who all had jobs, and we're just trying to do this on the side to have fun and make money.
How was it?
It was great.
The turnout was great?
Yeah, it was amazing turnout.
How did you market that show? Because this is like before.
This was 92, I think. 93. It was flyers.
Just flyers?
Yeah. This was when you could go to Kinko's and make as many copies as you want, and then tell them how many copies you made. And
the honor system?
Yeah, totally. So Kinko's operated that way for a long time at the beginning, right? They didn't have those counters or now the credit card thing.
So the big question is, were you honest?
Of course I was.
He winked.
Is Kinko's listening?
He winked.
Of course, no. So I mean, we had black and white flyers, and then I would use their color thing and like just get a ton of copies.
Yeah.
And hand to hand.
Did you get some time to talk to Eazy?
A little bit. So my partner on that show worked for him, worked at Ruthless, and so I kind of got to know him. We didn't really talk that night, but yeah, a little bit. He's a trip.
Yeah.
Just a massive character persona.
I imagine.
Like, you just walk in the room and like he's taking over the whole room.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you say that it took you so long to book that show, because I think we did this thing where we we put months of our lives into building this show. Had a great night, lost some money, and then never kind of thought about it again.
That was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a few years later, I started with a different partner, and we started doing regular shows, and ended up having a decent run. But, we didn't know at that time to think of this as a business, and to think, and if I were doing it now, I would have probably woken up the next morning and go, okay, what did I learn? How do I apply that to the next thing? And let's just keep it going.
Yep.
And realizing that success comes over time.
I had lofty goals for our first show.
Yeah.
I was going to all the big agencies, and their big question is, what have you done before?
Sure. Yeah.
And I had nothing.
Right.
So,
were you honest?
Oh yeah.
I mean, they could probably.
Yeah, they could have. Yeah, I wouldn't. It wouldn't have worked out.
Right.
So, but I lost a ton of money on the first one. I was getting photo booths and paying for this and putting other support acts on and just doing all this stupid stuff. But, I learned a lot for sure. And I don't look back at it as a bad experience for losing money, because the event was amazing.
Yeah.
And it got me to step 2. Everything was about getting to the next step,
That's
next
huge.
step. So, now we're doing close to 200 events a year.
Crazy.
This past weekend we did 5 or 6. I think we did 5. Yeah, we did 6 events.
Yeah.
In multiple cities, so we can do stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's been a very interesting experience to where I am now. But we have a long way to go.
So did you have that? Like I said, you did the first show, you lost money. Was that were you already in the mindset that we get to the next step, or did you have to kind of pull yourself out of that?
I think I had already booked my next 2 or 3 shows at that point.
Yeah.
Because I had never booked talent before, I didn't really know an artist's worth. I didn't know how much they were worth.
Yeah, of course.
And I just would guess,
Agents are not that helpful in that respect.
No. It'd be a lot easier if they were just like, I need X amount.
For sure.
I think Saturn does that.
Is that
I think the Saturn cars.
Oh yeah.
I think every dealership has the same.
They're out of business now.
Yeah, I was gonna say no. I don't know anyone who has a Saturn. But
no, you don't. My son gets really excited every time he sees a Saturn on the street.
Really?
I think it's maybe the name.
Yeah.
Also because it's a rare car. He's like, "That's rare. Is that like,
right?
like it's a special thing?" I'm like, "No, they stopped making them."
How old's your son?
9.
I was gonna say if he was like 1.5 and he was able to read, that'd be amazing.
He's been in the cars from as long as he could talk. We used to walk down the street and he would name the cars from the badges, and but like Saturn, he gets excited about like Saturn and Bugatti. Those are like the two.
That's a big,
because they're rare. Because in LA we see Porsches and Ferraris,
right,
and Lamborghinis every day, but you don't see Saturns or Bugattis.
That's great.
Pretty funny.
That's really funny, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
I forgot what we were talking about. I just can't stop thinking of Saturn.
You were talking about learning what to pay for talent.
Yes. It took time, and I found this is an interesting thing. I found the more you spend, if you do it the right way, on bigger talent, usually the reward is better. Usually you spend X amount on an artist that is pretty big, and most of the time, if it sells out, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
Over time, I have a good sense of what's going to sell and what's not going to sell.
How do you develop that? Like, what's the?
I mean, it's hard to explain. There's a lot of. I probably have done 300-400 events at this point where we booked artists. And
but you're not you're not booking Pulsestar shows, right?
No.
I mean, so is there data to?
I don't really, I looked at Pulsestar when I first started. I don't really pay attention to that anymore. You can just kind of tell who's like hot now. Who's releasing things that people are really listening to, who's popping up on all the big festivals. Just get a sense.
So how much, like, anecdotally, if you talk to people who probably don't know what they're talking about, like they'll say, to get a good booking, you need like Instagram followers, or you need like how much are you looking at that stuff?
I don't. It's sometimes you do and sometimes you don't, because there's some artists you've never heard of before, and they have these insane social media numbers, and I'm sure if you book them, some of them probably wouldn't even sell 50 tickets. Right. So I don't look too closely into social media, but sometimes I do. Yeah. An interesting trick that I always do is on Facebook, if you have a lot of friends on Facebook, you can look up an artist and it'll show you all of your friends that follow that artist. Yeah. So that sometimes helps a little bit. Yeah. It's just one of those things, like, there's a lot of artists that are really trending, and you go for those. And another good one is artists who might not play that often. That's another good one to go after as well.
Yeah, what do you think about that? Like, I know, there's the issue of overexposure, right? And there's different thoughts on that. And certainly for DJs, I think, there are some DJs that play every night in LA. If you're a local working DJ, you play every night. And so how do you sort of judge whether somebody is overexposed, or like what that's going to do to their draw?
Well, I think managers and agents, that's something that they really take into account. Yeah. Because, you don't want your artist who's coming in from, New York City, for example, to come to LA and have them play like 4 or 5 times a year. Right. Because eventually, even if they're really hot, like, ticket buyers aren't going to go to every one of those shows. Yeah. So, the best way to do it, in my opinion, is just have them come once, have them play somewhere really big, and don't overexpose them. Yeah. It's different. There's some artists who, you put them in a 400-person room, and it does really well. You can bring them back like 7 or 8 months later, put them in a bigger room, and it should sometimes do okay. Sure. The DJs who play on a weekly basis, they're not ticket sellers. Right. But there's a lot of really good ones, and it's great to also be able to expose them to like some of the shows that we do. Yeah. Put them on the lineups, have them play. Yeah. They're not going to draw tickets. Right. But hopefully the headliner does, and then you just know that the night music's going to be great. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've always found that's a really interesting balance. I was actually talking to a friend of mine last week that does a big conference, and he said kind of the same thing, right? That you book these headliners who may or may not sell tickets. Like, oftentimes the big names are not the ones that sell tickets in his business, right? But it's this other layer, but maybe the big names help get the other people, right? And so I think, that may be different for your business, but there is an issue of what gets people in the door, what gets them to come back, right? And I think those are often two different things. Right.
I think, the experience is really important too. Yeah. Hopefully the artists do their jobs. And then the second part of it is, does the person show up, and are the people at the doors friendly to them? Yeah. Does the sound at the venue, is it hold up to what they expect? Is it really good music? Sure. After the fact, someone loses their wallet, or somebody has a bad experience because of whatever reason. Right. if they contact you, or do you get back to them on a timely fashion and help them out?
Yeah.
All these things like attribute to the person's experience, and sometimes it gets to a point where your brand becomes strong enough where people just trust that whatever you're doing is really good.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to bring in those massive names. You bring in names that someone might not have heard of, but they'll go because they trust the brand and they end up liking it.
Yeah. How do you, as a business leader, how do you build that into your company? How do you get people thinking about the experience that they're creating?
Well, we're very hands-on. We send out, I'll give you a good example. When we sell out a show, most companies, they sell out the show, it's all great, sold out, everyone just comes. We'll take the time to actually send out a mailer or an email to everyone who purchased tickets and give them instructions. This is going to be a completely packed night.
Yeah.
Just be prepared.
Yeah. Come
early. These are things that you should look out for. Most of the bigger companies don't have time to do that.
Sure.
And I think it's definitely important.
Yeah.
Because it gives us like a voice. So people can, I get emails to my personal email all the time from customers because I put it out there.
Yeah.
Because I know if someone needs something, I just want to make sure that they...
I think that makes a massive difference. And especially to your point, like really the job of promoter is to be you should be what attracts people, not the act.
A little, it's a little of both. Yes,
for sure.
It's a little of both. If you're a bad promoter, or you're a bad event producer, and you bring in a big act, and you mess up too many times, and eventually someone's not going to want to give you their money to see these things. And when it comes to leadership, to go back, we have a great staff that work with us. Sometimes pre-event, sometimes during the event, sometimes post-event. And it's important that, since usually they're the ones who are at the events, that they understand our ethos of how we want to be around customers.
Yeah.
And they can see it because we're that way, and it rubs off on them. And then they start becoming, leaders, and they start becoming exactly what we look for.
Nice. So you have multiple different parties.
Yes.
Right? And if I understand it, each one is like, they're kind of genre based.
Yes. So we're partnered with a company called Le Faire Musicale.
Okay.
So we do all of our events together. That's a long story of how we became a team.
Yeah.
But when we started, all of our events were branded as Le Faire Musicale and Orlove Entertainment Presents. And probably after like a year of doing that, a lot of our peers would say like there was no brand awareness because it was just these two company names producing X.
Right.
So around that time, we decided we would start creating brands. So instead of branding everything as Le Faire Musicale and World of Entertainment, we would brand them as Wicked Paradise, for example, which is our daytime pool boat party brand that we do parties all over the country.
I'm a huge fan of day parties.
I am too.
As a guy that likes to go to bed early.
I am too. We were talking about this before.
Yeah.
If I'm up past 10 o'clock, I feel like I'm doing something wrong at this point.
Totally.
Yeah. But so we have so Wicked Paradise is one of our brands. We have a genre bending hip hop brand called Panic in LA.
What does that mean, genre bending?
So the idea behind it is we would blend old school with new school beats with rap.
Okay.
So the first one we did was turntablism. So the first one we did was DJ Premier with Craze.
Nice.
And Giraffage and Starro.
Wow.
And we did another one last year. Raekwon was on it with Sango and Pomo and Mixmaster Mike. And it's a way to to bring in different audience.
Yeah.
Because you've got an audience that knows Sango.
Yeah.
Who probably might not have ever listened to Wu-Tang before because they're
Right.
so young, so they don't know Raekwon.
Yeah.
And then vice versa, you've got all the old school Raekwon fans who have never heard of Sango, so you can expose them to all of it.
Yeah, talk about that a little. I mean, hip hop, especially. I mean, I guess rock's been through it, but there's a lot of talk about a generation gap, right? And there's the youngsters who are criticizing the old guys, and vice versa. The old guys don't like mumble rap or whatever. What's been your experience with getting those guys in a room together, and the crowd, seeing how the crowd responds?
So I don't like mumble rap.
Okay.
I don't really get it. But there is a ton of really good hip hop.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah.
Vince Staples just put out a good album.
Sure.
Earl Sweatshirt. There's Big Crit. There's tons of guys.
Yeah.
I can't speak for anybody, but I would guess that if you liked the old school 90s hip hop that you and I probably love, that you would probably like that. And same thing back and forth. So, when we're curating a lineup like that, we like all of the music on that lineup. So our hope is that somebody who's not exposed to that music that is on that lineup will go because they know the other acts, and they would enjoy it.
Sure. How much do you book stuff that you don't personally like?
I would say I like 95% of the things that we do.
Okay.
I'm not at a point right now where I'm booking acts that I don't necessarily like. If there's an act that's going to make me $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 that I don't like the music, like, I'll probably like them. Like, I'll like them while we're
great.
doing it.
Yeah.
But now I can be a little more selective of the kind of things that I like.
Right.
Because hopefully, if I like it, other people like it as well.
Yeah.
We're doing an event this weekend. There's a brand that we have a partner in New York created called The Drop, and it's an old school dubstep party.
Oh, cool.
So it's a format party where the DJs come in, they play all that, and I'm not into dubstep at all.
Yeah.
But it's a format party, so we're not really booking massive acts for that. We
Right.
just have really good DJs who are going and playing that format.
Yeah. So back to that idea. You've built all these brands.
Yes.
How much is the crowd different from one to the other?
Very different.
Is it?
It's very different. Yeah. Wicked Paradise is, a much older demographic. When I say much older, I mean, 25 through 34.
Okay. That's the older demo.
That's the older demographic compared to the. We'll go back.
Cool, I
yeah.
get it.
We do them at we have a residency at the Delano in Miami Beach, which is just a higher end venue, so it brings in a different crowd.
Yep.
We did an event this past weekend with Majestic Casual. It was 18 plus, and the crowd was much different. 18 to 24. Into that selection type music. So, I think diversifying the music, the brands is a really good way to be able to do multiple things on a weekend, even if it's in the same city. If it's in different cities, it doesn't make a difference. But if you're doing stuff in the same city and it's not competing with each other, it works.
So do you have to talk to those audiences differently?
No, not really. I mean, I think what's important is the aesthetic of the brand, of the artwork that you're pushing out. You definitely want to cater that towards your audience, towards the artists, because I think the artists have a lot to say with what kind of demographic that they bring in. But when it comes to like the marketing side of it, you just know who to go after. If you're doing a Majestic Casual show, you're not going after that like 28, 29, 30-year-old who goes to Sky Bar to buy tables, bottles.
Yeah,
so it's different. Yeah.
Interesting. What's been some favorite nights that like have affirmed your choice to be in this business?
Yeah. We just had a great one. Are you familiar with Mark Rebelli?
No.
So Mark Rebelli is this internet sensation.
Okay.
You probably have seen it pop up on YouTube or social media because it's all over the place. Mm-hmm. His glasses and a mustache, and he basically does this crazy improvisational like piano where.
Oh wow.
But he's like a comedian.
Yeah.
But he's also an amazing musician.
Nice. So
it's a mix. But he went from like when I first saw him, he had 5,000 followers on Facebook, and when we booked him, he probably had like 76,000 followers. And then from the span of when we booked him to the show, which was maybe like 2 months, he's now at like 500,000. Wow. He's doing shows all over the United States, doing shows all over Europe. So we just did his LA debut this past Friday. And you know, when you do like a debut and you know everyone's going there for like the first show, it just feels really special. The energy is really great in the room. So that was definitely a great one. Julie and I first started working together when we did Giorgio's disco. Familiar with Giorgio's?
Yeah. I go to.
You go to the Standard?
Sometimes,
yeah.
Saturday.
So we worked with their team and did their 5-year anniversary.
Oh, cool.
Which was Giorgio Moroder's birthday.
Yeah.
On his actual birthday.
Right.
And it was him. It was Roy Ayers playing live.
Nice.
Aeroplane and Yacht Live.
Oh yeah, that was last month.
That was in March.
Oh, okay. I remember I was gonna go and then I missed it. So.
You fell asleep?
No, I was. I might have been at South by, or I was out of town.
Yeah.
Wherever it was.
We're gonna do another one with them this year.
Cool.
So that was again
that's
like
the only club I go to with any.
Oh, to the Standard.
Yeah.
I've never been. That is way past my bedtime too.
That's hilarious.
But this one was 1,500 people.
Wow.
We did a crazy production, handmade disco ball concoction, and it was on a Wednesday night, I believe. But it was his actual birthday.
Cool.
And it's just one of those things. Like the energy was just so high. Like nobody left till the very end. He didn't come on till like midnight.
Yeah.
So that was a great one. And then the other one that comes to mind was, are you familiar with FKJ?
No.
So FKJ is, he's just a complete genius. He's like a one-man show who plays bass and guitar and keyboards and does it all simultaneously.
Yeah.
So we did his, and he's from France. We did his LA debut 4 years ago. And again, it's just like, you go in a packed room like that, and it's just complete focus on the artist, and the artist is doing this like amazing thing. It just feels really good.
Yeah.
But I'm proud of. I can say I'm proud of the majority of things that we do. Yeah, for sure.
What you were talking earlier about, going to clubs and the DJs were off in the booth. You didn't really know who was DJing.
Well, you knew. Because you knew they were there.
Yeah, sure.
But you didn't.
It
I don't remember
focus.
ever. Yeah, it wasn't the focus.
Yeah. How do you think that culture? What am I trying to say? How has Nightlife's place in culture changed since you started?
It's hard for me to answer that because I haven't really gone clubbing myself in, I don't know, like 7-8 years.
Wow.
So I'm sure it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think it's changed that much when it comes to like nightlife and club culture. I think that like, the beauty of this business is no matter what, you're 21, you're 22, you're 23, you're going to go out. It might be to a dive bar.
Sure.
It might be to a club. So that is, I don't think will ever change. Yeah. I do think the spectacle maybe has changed a little bit on the grander scale at the bigger places. But I think when you get to the nitty gritty of it, like around the world, I don't think it's really changed that much.
Okay.
Drinks have probably become more expensive, and
Sure.
it probably costs more money to actually go.
Yeah.
You know, a door might be like $40 some
Right.
places.
Tables and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think, I mean, I've seen the changes, right, from the DJs being in the booth to, I remember, so we used to do all the parties for Scion. And it was these DJs, Holland Mason, who requested to be on the stage. And that was the first time I'd had, we had sometimes had DJs on the stage, but it was like they were or they weren't, right? But this was the first time when they were like, we want to be front and center. And then now you see that's the way it is.
It's a norm,
right?
yeah.
So we saw that. I think then, you know, we saw, you know, the Lindsay Lohan era. And I used to do a party with Aoki and Frankie Chan around 2005, right? So that was kind of the heart of that, where it was really about the spectacle. I mean, I guess to some extent it always was, right? But then all of a sudden you had social media, you know, and blogs and all that fueling that. You know, the way, I guess what I'm interested in is you hear all these stories about, I had Louis Vega on the show, and he was talking about how, you know, he'd go make a record and then take it out that night and go play it at the club, and it would break the record, right? And I think you hear the same of Funkmaster Flex or these times where that was happening. I don't know if that's happening as much anymore, where the club is the place that records start and that music is discovered.
That's interesting. I'm not sure either, because I feel like there's always like a plan. You have a record
Sure.
that you have coming out. There's a much bigger plan
Yeah.
to have that record released. But I do think for sure that artists will still preview that at their events. I just don't know how many people are actually like would actually recognize it,
Right.
that's what's happening,
Yeah.
because it's not something they'll most of the time they would announce.
Yeah.
But that is really cool that Louis does that. I like
Yeah,
that.
sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just, you know, that stuff keeps shifting, right? And I think, you know, people going to see Louis Vega play, kind of to your point, are having a different type of experience than, you know, going to see a rap show or you know, buy a table in Vegas, right?
Sure.
Like those are just different. There's different purposes for those things. So for me, I think maybe it's just more varied than it used to be, and we used to think of club culture as this kind of one thing, which could just be.
There's much more options
Yeah.
today, I feel.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, there was probably like 3 or 4 places that you go to, and that's where everyone went to.
Yeah, sure.
Now, especially like in LA or New York or Chicago,
Yeah.
I mean, just the variety of things that you can do,
Right.
it's just so different.
For sure. I remember I used to, after we lost all that money, the next big party we did was a Tuesday night at Key Club. Now one
Remember
of,
Key
right?
Club, yeah.
Actually, at that time it was Billboard Live, and we picked Tuesday night because there was nothing going on, and we knew we could have the whole night to ourselves, and that everybody in town who was into that type of music would be there because they had nothing else.
Did you do it often?
We did it weekly.
It was a weekly?
Yeah.
How long did it last for?
6 months, and then there was a riot in the street, shut down Sunset Boulevard.
Really?
Crips and Bloods, yeah. So it was a hip hop night, and I did it. That was another great learning experience. So there were 7 partners, including, you know, Brian Austin Green, who was on Melrose Place at the time, or
90210.
Heather Hunter, the porn star. So we had,
I'm not familiar with her.
of course not. So we had a big crew, and, you know, a couple of the guys worked at record labels. So we were able to get release parties, and we were able to, in some cases, charge the labels for having their acts play at our event. So we were making tons of money, and it was a Tuesday night. It was the only thing going. And we, after the first week, we made like $50 each, but we had a great night. And then a couple of us decided we should make money doing this. So we instituted no guest list. Each of the partners got 10 wristbands you could hand out in advance, and then everyone else had to pay. And so we made a lot of money, or what at that time was a lot of money. But we neglected. We sort of fell victim to our own success, meaning like every week there was a huge line at the door. We had Shaq would pull up with 3 limos and see that everyone else was paying, and so he would just pay for his whole crew. And Janet Jackson. We had all these celebrities coming, so everyone stopped working to build a great night and just kind of coasted. And so
it just died down a little bit.
It didn't die out, but we stopped attracting the right people, and then kind of word got out more broadly, and so we end up with a room full of gangsters, and just the vibe totally changed.
So what happened on that last night with the riot? The riot happened in the club?
No, out on Sunset, and the sheriffs had to come and shut the street down and whatever. I forget who played that night, but whatever happened, some guys got into a thing, and then that was it.
My office is right next
really?
to there.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's like my home turf.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great time, but it, like 6 months, and then it was over.
Yeah.
And then we tried to bring it back a few years later, or like a couple of years later. But I think for me that was a real lesson in the fact that when things are good, you have to work just as hard as when you're starting out.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure we knew that at the time. What about you? So what's gotten easier and what's gotten harder as you've done this?
Easier is now that we've built a strong reputation, we're able to do the things we want to do. Yeah. We can reach out. We have an idea, or we're working with a brand. We can reach out to agents, say this is what we want to do, and there's much
they don't
more.
ask what have you done before.
Right. If they did, it would take me a while. So.
Sure.
But we've built relationships at this point too.
Yeah, of course.
But so that part's been great because now we can really do some really great things.
Yeah.
Harder is really just a lack of time. It's crazy. Like, I get to the office so early in the morning, and my favorite thing is getting to the office at like 6:30, and I have until 9 until I get my first email from somebody else.
Right.
But then like the day goes on, and it's like I'm always racing the clock until like it's I try to leave by like 5:30 so I can see my kids. Yeah. And I'm always racing the clock, and the day goes by so fast and so fast, and I want to get bigger, quicker. You look at the weeks, and I'm already like focused on like what's happening in March and April and May. So, the way that I manage that is I really want to start cutting the fat. The things that don't really, not just like financially, the things that aren't really coming in, but I want to focus on like bigger things. Like my first festival, or like owning a venue, or bigger shows like that.
Yeah.
So
how do you do that? How do you decide what to say no to?
I used to say yes. There was a time when I first started where, Julia could email me because she's like this up and coming DJ, and she's got this SoundCloud that she wants me to listen to, and I would like call that person because I had nothing else to do.
Julia's probably a good DJ.
Yeah, she's.
It's more like this.
Right.
Got to go to her first show that's happening.
Exactly.
Now, now if it's something that I just know is, it's not going to work, or I have no problem saying no to anyone.
Yeah.
But I'm honest about it. If someone presents something to me, most people might just ignore it.
Right.
But then they're just going to like follow up again. I'd just get on the phone with them and be like, look, I'm just be honest with you. It's not really the direction we want to go.
Yeah.
but I do appreciate you taking the time to like reach out, and maybe sometime in the future we'll have an opportunity.
I think that's huge, man. Personally, some of my favorite people are the ones who have taken the time, even if it's 10 seconds, to send an email and say, hey, this is not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is such a massive service that you provide somebody, as opposed to just ignoring them.
I mean, that's business 101.
Yeah.
I mean, any business you're in, that should be the first thing. You know,
Yeah.
I return every phone call. I, for the most part, will respond to every single email that comes in before I leave.
Yeah.
And if I can't
Same
get
here.
to it, I'll just let the person know that I'll take a look at it and get back to them.
Right.
That stuff's important, and I expect the same from other people. If I call someone and I email them and they don't get back to me in a timely fashion, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So that stuff's important.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, you kind of talked about, a venue, a festival. Where do you see? You mentioned each thing is taking you to the next step.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. It's places I want to go.
Yeah, sure.
I think now, our main focus with Wicked Paradise, for example. Last year was a great year because we became active in New York, active in Chicago and Miami.
Yeah.
So I'd like to definitely expand on that. We do, I would say like around 50 Wicked Paradise parties a year in LA. So I'd like to expand on that and get to 50 in Chicago and 50 in New York, 50 in Miami, get into San Francisco.
How much, when you go into a new city, how much is different and how much is the same?
Well, what's different is you don't have a following per se.
Sure.
We've done so much here that we've got a very strong mailing list.
Right.
So in addition to the online marketing or whatever street marketing we do or promoters we work with, we also have like a massive mailing list that really benefits.
Yeah.
You start somewhere new and you got to start all over.
Yeah. Do you have, is there like a playbook that you follow as you go to each city?
I think having strong talent in a lot of new markets is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Because if they're strong enough, you can rely on them to help you sell the tickets. But the actual marketing protocol is the same.
Right.
We might spend more money in another market.
Right.
In another market.
Yeah, of course.
We do some of our other format parties. So we just did our blog house party in Austin, Texas this past week.
Nice.
That one's not artist specific.
Yeah.
But it's definitely got a very strong audience because of the music that's being played. So that one definitely works, but we've done it a few times there, so we've been building that list. I think having a strong venue partner in each of these markets is very important as well. You want to be at a venue that is, people go to, that has a strong marketing platform of their own. And the best way to get venues to want to work with you is you just build a great reputation, because they follow.
Yeah, of course.
So it's definitely a slow process when you build in other markets, but you can still do it.
Sure. I have like a lightning round I need to ask you.
Like the James Lipton?
Kind of.
Oh man.
I'm a poor man's James
Should I
Lipton.
take my jacket off?
Definitely.
It's not difficult.
I'm not wearing a shirt under it.
Cool. Then definitely. Phone's frozen. Cool. What's your favorite city to travel to?
Rome.
I was just
I have
there
two.
last month. Loved it.
It's the best, right?
Yeah.
I also, in the United States, I like going to New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
New Orleans is one of those cities that I just love going to, and I love leaving, because actually Rome and New Orleans have a very similar thing in common.
Really?
They both have this amazing food
Yeah.
that you want to eat at every meal, and by the time you're done, you don't want to eat it for like.
That's so funny.
You're just
you say
like
that. I
you're just like no more Cajun food, no more Italian food. Italian food, like I can go a week without after Rome, but that's.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. We went to Jazz Fest this year, and then we went to Rome last month, and I didn't put those together. But yeah, I mean, I noticed it in Rome. Like, okay, enough pasta.
But you can't
Like, I
stop.
can't- no, of
You
course.
can't stop.
Right.
Like every
But I was definitely like 5 days in. I was like, all right, I need something. We actually went to Chinese food in Rome.
You did?
Yeah.
Was it good?
It was good. It was just like Chinese food.
Yeah. Did you get the Chinese noodles?
Yeah, I mean,
You got the Chinese noodles.
Yeah.
So you actually kind of stuck to the.
Kind of.
Did,
but we, my son likes dumplings and
Yeah.
so we did all that. But I just needed a break from like pasta with pork. That's so funny. Yeah, I never drew that.
New Orleans is
comparison,
worse
but I
though
love it.
because that's like
Right.
it's really bad for you,
Yeah,
but it's like
super heavy.
amazing.
So
it's
good.
so good, and it's like by the end, it's just like, oh my god, I need
Yeah.
to.
Absolutely. Oh, I forgot to ask you this.
Yes.
What other club brands or promoters or like who do you look to that as a model or for inspiration or?
I respect a lot of the brands that are out there, but I don't pay too close attention to what other people do. Not for any reason. Other reason is I'm just like, I really don't go out that often anymore.
Yeah.
But I know I see it. I respect. What I like is there's a lot of brands all over the world, and the aesthetic of how they push out their content is really interesting. I don't know if I model anything I do off it, but I do notice it.
Yeah.
Like specific ones. You want to know some specific? I mean, are you familiar with Selection?
Yeah.
Love what those guys do.
Absolutely.
The platform that they've built to showcase some amazing artists who have become really big on their own has been it's really great to watch. There's time. I'd have to think about it, but I'll come back to it another time.
No, that's good. That's cool. Okay, back to our lightning round.
Yes.
Who's your favorite DJ?
My favorite DJ. Any genre?
Any genre.
I really enjoy Solomon from Dynamic.
Cool.
I think Solomon's really great. Music's great. I like his way he's up on stage.
Nice. What's the last great book you read?
God. I don't read that. I can't finish books anymore. So I gotta think. I gotta think of the last really good one I read was Scar Tissue, the Anthony Kiedis autobiography. I definitely tend to want to read autobiographies at this point.
Yeah, my wife read that. She was.
It's great. Have you read it?
No.
So do you like Chili Peppers?
No.
Don't?
No.
Really?
But my wife's crazy about them.
Yeah.
And my son took a improv class with his son.
Really?
Yeah.
So they're interesting. They've been around forever.
I mean, I respect it.
Yeah.
I don't like to see how people having that much fun.
You don't see at the shows?
Yeah.
Well, because now
No.
they're
No, like the band. Like they just seem like they're having too much fun.
Yeah. I've always loved the Chili Peppers, but I mean, we were talking about first records like Blood, Sex, Sugar, Magic. I was in 8th grade when it came out.
Crazy.
That was a long time ago.
Sure.
But bands having fun. So I just want to say something real quick. I just saw the Foo Fighters at Wrigley Field in Chicago, and I mean, you can't. I like the Foo Fighters. I've always liked their music. I don't love them though.
Yeah.
But seeing them live, seeing those guys like run around stage for, I think they played for 3 hours.
Is that right?
It's just like, it's just great to see that they still have it in them and they still love doing it.
No.
But Scar Tissue was a good book.
Nice. What movie have you seen the most in your life?
I love film. So this one's interesting because it's not my favorite movie.
Right.
But when I was in college, it was constantly on. So I'm sure you remember when VHS had 2 tapes.
Yeah.
When it was like a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
So we had Scarface on those 2 cassette tapes.
Sure.
And somebody stole the second tape.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if someone got stole it or we just had that one tape.
So you just watched the
Luckily, it
first
was
half?
part 1 where like Tony's like, and we used to watch that one tape.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I probably have seen that like 60, 70 times.
That's hilarious.
But another movie, because if we're really talking about like what I've seen the most, because as a kid I would watch it all the time, is I probably know the Goonies from like start to finish, like every single line.
That's cool.
But again, not one of my favorite movies.
I mean, they never are.
Yeah.
They never are. Like we end up with these movies that we see over and over.
What's yours?
It's either like Fletch or
Fletch is amazing.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Mm-hmm.
It's those movies that like you don't put it on,
Mm-hmm.
it just comes on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what
So
I mean?
every time it's on.
Yeah, you just flip to it, and then you watch from wherever you started.
Mm-hmm.
You just watch it.
Yep.
And they're not the greatest movies,
Mm-hmm.
but they just
Fletch is pretty great.
Yeah, it is.
Fletch is pretty great.
But it's Blazing Saddles, stuff like that.
Agreed.
Yeah. Tell me one decision that changed your life forever.
Getting married. Getting married became having kids.
Sure.
But that has definitely changed me because I'm serious. It took me a while to feel like I was serious. Not feel like I was still a kid.
Right.
So having children completely changed it.
Oh, I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, it's like you understand life. Like you see your kids seeing things for the first time and it's like, oh,
yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, I had the same experience. And I had the thing, I don't know if, I tend to be pretty reserved sometimes. And then I'm way more outgoing when I'm with my kid. And I'll do like stupid things that I would just never do if he wasn't there.
That's, I think, being a dad.
Yeah.
Every book that there's not many I love you dad books, mostly mom books for some reason.
Yeah.
But the dads are always the silly that do the things that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get it.
That's
great.
funny. So complete this sentence for yourself. I don't have talent. I have blank.
I have drive.
That's good. So if I worked for Orlove Entertainment, what's something I would hear you say over and over?
Definitely be honest. Treat customers the way you'd want to be treated. And be responsive. Just the exact things we were talking about. Business 101.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Can you swear on these things?
Yeah.
Well, I don't normally swear, but if you fuck up, own it. Just tell me or whoever like what happened.
Sure.
And we'll figure it out together how to fix it, and we'll move on. These are all things that I used to I was in business for a long time, so I've learned these things.
Yeah, sure.
It's just business 101. It's teaching the things to the person who's working with you to instill in them so that they can be the person you are.
Yeah, it's great. It's not enough of that. Certainly in the nightlife business.
It's
probably in all business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think nightlife is definitely a little different for sure.
It's after dark.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of shadiness.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you be most excited to learn appreciates your work?
My father. He does. He
Yeah.
does. I'm not. It's not a sentimental thing.
No, that's cool.
He's he's like my confidant when it comes to business, and so I can talk to him about anything, and he understands it. He doesn't necessarily understand the business per se because he's not in it, but he understands business.
Yeah.
So and he always plays devil advocate. He's always pushing me to do even better.
Yeah. That's great to have that, and I think, obviously just having that relationship with your dad, but I think especially in the business you're in, where of course he's not going to get that, I assume he's not a club guy.
Nope.
Although maybe he is.
He's been.
Right? But
he tries to tell me stories.
Yeah, is that right?
I don't believe them.
That's good enough.
Like how
As
he
long
was
as he tries.
suave back in the day.
Is that right? That's funny.
But the story doesn't make it sound like he's suave.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's great, and that's going back to having children is I want to be the same way.
Yeah.
I want my children to.
They're not going to believe you either.
They're definitely not going to believe me, and I'm not going to tell them.
Right.
Any stories? They're not going to hear any of these stories, or this interview.
That's right.
Because you're going to cut that part out.
That's right. We have explicit on the podcast. Thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. This has been
I
great.
want to come to a party.
You're always welcome. You're always welcome.
Maybe a day party.
Of course, you're always welcome.
So how should everybody find you guys online?
So our revamped website will be up and running in the next few weeks.
Okay.
It's orloveentertainment.com. Find us on Facebook, Orlove Entertainment. And obviously our brands are Wicked Paradise and Dance and Take Me Out. Just look us up.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Dope, man. Well,
That's
I
it?
appreciate that. Yeah, that's it.
Is that an hour?
That's an hour.
I would love to come back. This is really fun.
Yeah, come back anytime. There's lots more to talk about.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Dude.
Can they hear us hugging each other? Like,
Sure.
is it that? Let's bring it in.
We'll hug it. Yo, that was Matt Orlove on Rebel Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Leave us a review on iTunes, a comment on Twitter or Facebook at Rebel Radio Net. That's Rebel Radio Net. And you can check out videos from a lot of our episodes on our YouTube channel at Rebel Radio Net. And most importantly, come back next week for more Rebel Radio. Peace.